So here is trigonometry graphing. We're going to look at the graph of y equals 2 cos 2 brackets x plus pi over 4 close bracket minus 1. So to be able to graph something like this, you have to know the parent graph. The parent graph is this graph right here in burgundy. So it starts at this point right here. It finishes at this point. That's a full period. So the cos graph starts at the maximum, finishes at the maximum. The middle is a minimum at -1. Then at pi over 2, you have a 0 right here. And at 3 pi over 2, you have a 0. So just know the general formula for the sine or the cos is this, where A is the amplitude, C is the phase shift, and D is the vertical displacement. So the phase shifts basically means shifting to the left or to the right, so horizontal displacement. And then D is the vertical displacement, which is going up and down for the graph. And then the graph, the period of the parent graph is 2 pi. But if we have something like this, this number here will change the period. So the first thing we want to do when you want to graph something like this is to find out what the period is. That's the first thing you want to do when you want to graph a sine or a cos function. So the period will be 2 pi over b, and b here is 2. So that would be 2 pi over 2, which is pi. So the period for this graph is pi. I always like to find the scale after I find the period. And usually to find the scale, just take the period, which is pi here, and divide it by 4. So the scale, the scale of the graph, usually just take the period and divide it by 4. So therefore, I'm going to scale by pi over 4. Okay, now, what does that mean, scale by pi over 4? What it means a pi make it into 4 segments. So 1, 2, 3, 4, that's where you put your first pi right here. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 2 pi. Also count this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's negative pi right there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, that's negative 2 pi. Okay. Now, the way I graph, I always just like to graph one period, which is a pi. So the period is pi, so you're going to get this full wave right here between 0 and pi. So your graph has shrunk. And also, I like to indicate what the amplitude is. So that if the amplitude is 2, then it's going to scale the y, the y-axis. So what that means, it means I'm gonna graph one period. So one period is gonna be between 0 and pi, because the period is pi, with an amplitude of 2. The amplitude is how high up you're from the x-axis. So that's the first thing I do. So and I'm just gonna put points. I don't graph the whole thing. So now, since the amplitude is 2, that means my amplitude is 2. So my point is gonna start here. I remember that the cosine graph starts on the y-axis, finishes at 2 pi, but now since the period is pi, it's going to finish at pi, and it's going to finish at the maximum because the endpoint is a maximum. Now the middle, right in between here and there, at pi is -1. So it's a minimum. However, since the period is pi, not 2 pi, then my minimum is going to be at pi over 2, right? That's right in the middle, if you see. Then my mid point is going to be at the minimum of -2 right here. Okay, and then in between here and here, I'm going to have my 0. So my 0 is going to be at pi over 4. And this point right here is going to be also on the x-axis, and it's going to be 3 pi over 4. So when I said my scale is pi over 4 here, that means this counts as 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, which gives me 1. So now these points right here gives you a full wave. So if this here, basically we graphed y equals 2 cos 2x. Okay, if it was this will be the full graph right here. But we still have this right here and this. So what does that mean? It means we have a phase shift of -pi over 4 and vertical displacement of -1, which means my graph moved left pi/4. That's what phase shift means, because when it's a plus, you change the sign. And then it moved down 1. So all you need to do is just go to these points right here, move them a pi/4 to the left. Remember, this is -pi/4, -pi/2. Just know each scale here counts by pi/4, since the scale is pi/4. So if we want to move every point pi/4 to the left, we just move 1, because that counts for pi/4, and then down 1. So down 1, the new point is going to be right here. So I'm just going to put an X. We don't mix them up with the other points. And then I'm just going to take this point, move it pi/4 to the left, and then 1 down. So it's going to go right there. And then this point moves pi/4, 1 down. So it goes right there. Just remember that 2 scales count for 1 on the vertical line, okay, on the y-axis. That's X right here. And then this point here moves pi/4 to the left, 1 down. So it goes right there. And this last point moves pi/4 to the left and 1 down. So it will be right there. Now I have all my points, 3 of them there. I'm just going to put them in a different color so you could see them. So right there, right there, right there, there, and there. So now if I want to graph a full period as they ask me, it's just going to be like this. And that's a full period. So that's what all they ask me for. So now if I want to show you a little bit more on the graph, my baseline now is right here. This is what my baseline is. So that's my vertical displacement, if you wish, which is at y equals -1. That's indicating that -1 right there. If you want to graph more of this graph, then it's easy. You just follow what's happening. You see how from a max, we go on the baseline, and then we go to a minimum, and then we go on the baseline, and then we go to a maximum. So from here, you just go this way, and you're going to get another point right there. And after that, you go pi/4 to the left and go back to a minimum, and then go pi/4 to the right and go up to the baseline, and then pi/4 to the right, and then just go to a maximum again. And you continue this trend, and you'll be able to graph a full way, more periods if you wish. Yeah, but I'm just going to do 1 period for you here, because that's what this is asking for. So it's very simple actually to graph sine and cosine waves. I think the best approach is to just graph 1 period with the right amplitude, and then apply the phase shift and the vertical displacement to it. Sometimes you'll have a negative right in front in here. So that means once you graph that, just you flip the whole graph, because a negative in front will just flip the whole graph. So your maximums become minimums, and your minimums become maximums. And that's basically how you graph a sine or a cosine graph. So you always have to look at the parent graph, because that's your guide to any graph with different amplitudes, periods, and phase shifts and vertical displacement. Okay, I hope this helps you with your Math 12 if you're in BC or British Columbia, Canada. And I don't know, I think in Ontario also you do that in grade 12, in Alberta as well. I know that for sure, because I tutor students from there. But elsewhere, you know, some places I know they do this in grade 11. But wherever you are, I hope this helps you understand graphing sine and cosine graphs a little bit better. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and share with anyone who could benefit from this. Thanks again. Bye-bye.